Hi, I'm Celia Boothman, founder of LTR Coaching, and I'd like to welcome you to the Inspired Triathletes podcast, where I'll be bringing you stories from female triathletes and taking on topics that are important to women in the sport. Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm here with Hilary Topper, who is the author of a book called From Couch Potato to Endurance Athlete. So welcome, Hilary. It's great to have you on. That's okay. So we'll start off just with a little bit of background about you. What was it that inspired you really to go from that couch potato, as you call it, to an endurance athlete? What was there a trigger
So,
point?
yeah, there definitely was a trigger point. I was, I was like going through perimenopause and I started to evaluate my life really, like what do I want? How do I want to go down this path of, working 80-hour weeks and going to all these cocktail parties and packing on the weight and really just not eating healthy and not having a healthy lifestyle. I mean, do I want to go down that path or do I want to change my life? And at that point, I was like, I have to change my life. I am not happy with how it's going. Even though the business was going well at the time, I wasn't happy. So I joined a gym for the first time in my life. I never like stepped foot in a gym before, so it was really a weird thing for me. And I hired a personal trainer right away, and he said to me, you really should go on the treadmill, warm up. And and he went upstairs, he just left me there. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And there was a woman next to me who was running and sweat's dripping off of her. And I asked
Yeah.
her, "Excuse me, can you help me turn this on?" So it was basically like that. And she
Yeah.
did, and she was real gracious about it. And after that, I just started to walk on the treadmill and eventually I ran on the treadmill and I met this woman. This was like very random. She was in one of my women's groups, and I said, "Oh, I'm starting to run, on the
Yeah.
treadmill." And she said to me, "Oh, why don't we meet every Sunday? We'll go on the, where we lived in Long Beach, which is in New York, and there's this very beautiful boardwalk there that overlooks the Atlantic Ocean. And the boardwalk spans about 2.1 mile in each direction. So she said to me, let's meet on the boardwalk and let's do a run walk. We'll see how we go. And I knew that she was pretty experienced. I mean, she had just ran the New York City Marathon. So I was like, why
Right.
would she want to run with me? I'm just starting. I don't really even know how to run. But anyway, it turned out that we had a similar gait and we really enjoyed run walking together.
Yeah.
So we started to do that and we were doing, and we started doing that every Sunday. And then she said to me, you know what? We should sign up for a half marathon. Let's do it in Disney. And I was thinking, Mickey Mouse, like how hard could it be? So that was really the start. And after that, we started doing a lot of different events together around the country. And then the big aha moment was when it was a couple of years later. I had just come back from Fort Myers, Sanibel in Florida.
Okay.
I was one of the early adopters of wearable tech, and there, and I was asked to be a Google Glass Explorer.
Right.
So here, these are like augmented reality glasses that you could take photos and video and, share it on social, and it's all in your headset.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm invited down to Fort Myers to do this project with four other people from around the US. And the the person who it was in charge of the tourism board down there, she said to me, "Oh, you're a runner. Oh, you would love to do this triathlon. It's called the Sanibel Tri and Captiva Tri, and we'd love you to come down." And so anyway, so fast forward a couple of weeks, and my friend and I were doing we're doing the Brooklyn Half Marathon,
Okay.
and we're very close to Coney Island. And she says to me, "You know what? I don't want to do these anymore. I'm done." She says, "I'm absolutely done. These running events are horrible."
Okay.
So I said to her, "Oh, well, let's try a triathlon," not
Yeah.
knowing anything about triathlons. I knew it was swim, bike, and run, but that was it. Like, I didn't even know what any of this was.
Yeah.
So we sign up for this event, and she says to me, "We got to hire a coach." And
Okay.
she ended up going with one coach. I ended up going with this guy who, thinks I'm like, an Olympian or something, it's like training me like, hours every day. I'm
Yeah,
like, what
yeah.
the heck is going on here? Because I'm just a beginner. I'm not.
That happens quite a lot actually with
Yeah.
coaches. They just
Yeah.
kind of go, "Oh yeah, you're training for triathlon. You must like be starting at this point," without even finding out. You're like,
Oh my God. I
really?
didn't I didn't even know how to swim. Like
Yeah.
25 yards, or,
Wow.
in the pool, which is comparable to a 25-meter. It's a little
Yeah.
shorter. Um I was throwing up. I could not get through that 25
Wow.
yards without. I mean, I didn't even know how to like put my head in the water. I was just
Yeah.
kind of like doing the
Oh
doggy
God.
paddle, and
Yeah, yeah.
so it was a lot
That's
of
amazing.
big learning curve, to get me to do this event. And
Yeah.
then once I did that event, I was totally hooked.
Okay. And was that a sprint triathlon or what
Hmm.
distance was it? Yeah.
It was a sprint. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. We didn't go straight for Ironman or anything.
Oh no. I know a lot
Some
of people
people
that,
do, and yeah,
yes,
that
no.
is crazy. But to do that, to do the sprint, after doing half marathon, I remember training a long time ago. I trained for a half marathon. I was like, oh my God, it's such a lot of training. Like it was years before I started getting into triathlon. And then I looked at the triathlon distances and I was like, whoa, it's about the same just for a sprint, to do the amount of training. So it is a big deal doing a sprint triathlon when you've not.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And you had your mentor by the sounds of it, and you had that kind of motivation with each other, which is really great to have. So do you feel like you're a bit of a mentor now for other people?
Yeah, so I really, to me, I try to do like a lot on social media, like to motivate people. I want
Mm.
I'm I'm by no means a great athlete. I love doing triathlons and I love doing all of these events. I do, also distance swimming, and
Okay.
I'm not fast at all. I'm back of the pack, but
Yeah,
what I like to instill in people is, what? It's okay, like, so
yeah,
what? So you're in the back of the pack. So what? You're doing so much better than those who are sitting on the couch watching TV and drinking wine, I mean,
yeah,
really, like, and mentally, it makes a big difference, especially when you're going through perimenopause or menopause, and
mm,
it's just it's a hard time. So when you go through that, it definitely helps.
yeah. It provides some kind of structure, doesn't it, for you? And then that sense of achievement. And as long as you can stay in that mindset, I think that's great what you're saying about, you don't have to be the fastest person in the race or doing like, you sometimes see a lot of that in the triathlon space of this
Yeah.
very elite level triathlete, but most of us aren't like that. And most people are just, doing it to keep fit and be healthy and have fun. And And what can happen with people, I think, is they get sucked into it. They think, but I'm not very fast, and and then they start beating themselves up. So,
Right, like,
yeah,
everybody's looking at Strava, everybody's
yeah.
looking to see, like, "Oh, this one was so much faster than me," Like,
Mm,
I mean, it was so nice. Today, I went out with 2 people who I never swim with, and, they invited me to swim with them, and it was interesting because I did not care that they were so much faster than me. Like, I just,
mm,
you know what? I'm gonna enjoy the water. I'm just gonna, like, just do my thing, let
yeah,
them be, if they don't wanna wait for me, that's okay,
yeah.
I'll be
And
okay, and
you're quite
enjoy it.
happy. You've got the self-confidence to be able to manage that, and some people don't. But and do you think that comes from starting later in life because you've got no expectations really, have you, coming into it? It's like whatever I
Exactly.
do is great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing of it is that I think for the first, for many, many years. I mean, it took me a long time to get to this mental state. And there
Yeah.
are times when I'm like, oh, I wish I was faster or, whatever. I
Mm,
mean, you do get that. Like you do compare yourself with others. And I think it's just human nature.
yeah.
But, I'm really trying hard to just keep in my space, keep in my lane, and then what I do is like on social, I try to get people to feel like, okay, it's okay. You know what? I wanna, I'm gonna if Hillary could do it, I could do it, like that. Like
Yeah.
I don't I want it to be more that we're all, kind of in it together and it doesn't really matter as long as we're doing it.
Yeah, and all you can do is your best, and there's no that's that's it. And some people are like my best's not good enough. I'm like,
I
well,
know.
you
I
can't
know.
do any more than that. You try your hardest. You turn up. Like you say, that's more than most people will ever do in their life. A lot of people do nothing like what
Most
you're
people.
doing. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you need to
Yeah,
kind of
they
acknowledge that.
yeah, people think people from my past life think I'm absolutely out of my mind,
Right.
because I've never this was not me, and it was a 10-year plus transition of just,
Mm,
really just, getting focused. And to me, it, as you said, Cecilia, um, it keeps you on track. It keeps you on
mm.
track. It keeps you motivated, and when you have a structure, you just kind of do it. And,
Yeah, you get on with it, and
yeah,
you know what you're going to do, and you've got that goal as well of the race at the end of it, which is great because it's like just there in the future. And so, oh no, my brain's gone. I just thought of something I was going to ask you, and it's
uh,
just
that's all right.
completely gone out of my head. Oh yeah, I was going to say, so that the people that did you kind of have a bit of a life shedding of people from your past life, and did your sort of social life change as well with the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what happens when you become a triathlete or an endurance athlete is you get very close to people. It's almost like these are your people,
Mm,
like when you go to a race and you see people that and it just feels good to see these people. Or even the swimming. I just did a 5.5-mile swim in the ocean. It's
mm,
a big swim out on Long Island, and it was just so nice to see people that I know from years ago, and then the people who I didn't know, we connected with, and
yeah,
we automatically had a shared common interest, that really, really resonated with me. And it makes you feel really comfortable, like you belong to this community. And it's a really nice community. It's very welcoming, to
yeah,
anybody and everybody. And that's why, in the beginning of before we started this conversation, I was telling you I also have a new book coming out called Unlocking the Triathlon. A beginner's guide to competing in a triathlon. And
Yeah.
it really takes you like from, why do you want to do this? Like
Mm,
figuring out your why to, the zones, how to figure out your training zones. And then, really delving into like the swim, bike, and run, and then getting into nutrition and hydration and supplements, like stuff like that, that you really have no idea about when you first
mm.
start this sport. And I had bought like all of these books. Like I can't even tell you how many books I bought when I first
Yeah.
started. And so many of them were so complicated. I couldn't even, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is this man saying? It's going completely over my head. So in my book that's coming out in January, it's really it's really like a book that you can relate to, that you can understand, that you could really use as a manual. So,
Mm.
and
Yeah,
then,
definitely.
yeah, and then I have another book that's going to follow that sometime either
Wow.
next year or the year after on open water swimming, because that
Okay.
is another thing. Like, so I did not know how to swim. Right when I
Mm,
started,
yeah.
I was 53. I didn't know how to swim. This is so embarrassing, but I joined this master swim group, and the lifeguard, who happens to be like really hot,
Okay.
don't tell him I said that. So he jumps in the water. He sees I'm struggling. I'm throwing up. I'm like, the water is getting up my
Oh
nose.
my
I'm like,
God.
oh my God, this is like a disaster.
Mm,
So he actually jumps in the water with me and he says, "Come on, Hillary, let's blow bubbles." Now he's like 30, I'm
mm.
53. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so embarrassing." And everybody in the other lanes are they're just, going
Yeah.
fast and hard and there's me blowing bubbles with the swim instructor. It was really bad. But
It's a really good exercise to do that, isn't it? To calm you down. Yeah.
But he really taught me how to swim, and this was like a 360, because when I did this Maggie Fisher swim on Friday, the 5.5-mile swim, he was actually there doing the swim,
Oh,
and I said to him, "You were the one who got me here." And he's like,
oh,
"Yeah, you're right." I mean, I said from blowing bubbles to Maggie Fisher.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
it was
so
really cool.
nice to see like the impact that someone can have on your life like that. Like I suppose you had all those little connections that you make and okay, this is the way you're gonna go and you're gonna like someone
It's
mentioned
awesome.
something. Yeah, it's so cool that those things happen and you like end up somewhere and you're like, how did I get here? Like, wow. And it's nice to look back and say and appreciate those people that helped you on the way as well. Like you got to say thank you to him as well.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and the reason why I was saying the story was because I remember at that time I was so scared about swimming a mile. Oh my God, a mile in the
Mm,
open water, like in the ocean. Like how scary is that? I grew up on the beach. It was funny because
mm,
but my mother never let me in the water. She was like, "Oh,
okay.
the riptide's going to pull you in, sweep you away, you're going to die."
Yeah.
It was always like that, like
Yeah.
dramatic.
Yeah, yeah.
So I never went in. And, swimming, in the open water is a fear for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But what was interesting was that, like, for me, once it clicked, and I was able to just do it. And I finally, was able to swim in the open water, no problem. But now that I'm also a coach, and I'm also certified in um, USMS
Mm,
swim coach and Wowzer swim coach. And the thing about it is that I've been meeting so many people who are so nervous about going in
mm.
the open water. You can't see anything. What's in there? There's sharks. There's this. There's
Yeah.
crabs. There's,
Yeah.
you know, you don't, and people are really nervous. So, you know, I decided to write a book, another book
Yeah.
about open water swimming. And this book is also for beginners. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
a very beginner book, like talking about the mental stuff, how to overcome
Mm.
that. And
Yeah, because there is a lot of weird fears that people have. I think I did an Instagram post a long time ago and I said, "What are you most scared of in open water?" And the responses were really bizarre. Some of them you're like, "Really?" But your mind does some very strange things when you're in open water and you
You
can,
know, you're right, and the longer you go in the open water, like, the further you go, you do a
mm,
10 you finally do a 10K swim or something, or, beyond that, I'm doing an 8.3-mile swim,
wow.
in Michigan coming up in a couple of weeks,
Mm.
and you start hallucinating a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, "Did I see
Yeah,
that?"
yeah. What was that? Oh my God. Yeah, we get these they're barrel jellyfish in the sea
Mm.
here and they're
Mhm.
massive. They're like that big.
Ugh.
And it feels like a well, it sometimes can feel like a dead body or something when you
Yeah,
hit
like,
it
your
because it's
fingers
really
go through
solid.
it,
You're
right?
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what was that?" So people get really freaked out by those and it's just exposure, isn't it, to that kind of thing. It's all you can do like in small doses. But you sometimes will get a big group, you have to swim
Ugh.
through them and there's nothing you can do about it. Everyone's in the same situation. But
Exactly.
they don't sting, which is good.
Oh,
They
that's
just,
good.
yeah, they just look like you sort of see them
Yeah.
looming. What's that? Yeah.
Or seaweed, like
Oh
when I was
yeah.
I was doing the Maggie Fisher, there was so much seaweed. Oh my God, I was getting caught in it. Like it was just
Mm.
wrapped around me
Oh
and
yeah.
like, oh my God, this is like I can't get through.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you get that in lakes as well, don't you? Like with
Yeah.
so people think, oh, I'll do a lake swim, it'll be easier, and then you can get sort of quite a lot of pondweed in lakes sometimes. It's
Yeah,
not so
ooh,
nice.
it could even
Yeah,
be worse.
yeah, you don't want to think about that. Well, that's good. So you've written one book, and you're in the well, you've have you finished the second book?
So
It's coming out in
yeah,
January.
so that one's done. It's right now at the typesetter.
Okay.
My publisher is, just laying it out, and we're going to be getting out, review copies and stuff like that soon. But
Mm.
it'll be available to the general public, and it will be available in the UK. My
Okay.
publisher is actually, um, she is in Germany, and her person who does a lot of the marketing and stuff like that, she's in the UK. So
Okay.
it will be there, when it's
Yeah.
available. So
Okay. So, and what is it that's motivated you to write these books? Because you obviously like writing books if you've got a few coming up.
So yeah, so I have a blog, right? So the first book, the From Couch Potato to Endurance Athlete,
Mm,
is actually a compilation. So what happened? What happened? I'll give you the long and short of the story.
yeah.
So I have this blog. It's called a triathletesdiary.com,
Okay.
and the blog's been around since I started doing triathlon, and my SEO web guy, he says to me, you really need to remove some of these stories. They're so old, and it's too much. Like your site is huge.
Oh
You
yeah.
got to like try to,
I had that problem. Yeah.
yeah,
You have
exactly,
to
right.
get rid of some stuff. Yeah.
So I start going back like to 2011, 2010, 2011, all that. And as I'm going back, I'm downloading these stories, and I start putting them all together, and I start reading them together as like a story.
Mm,
And I was talking to this woman who worked for me, and I said to her, "What do you think? You think this is could be a book?" And she said, "Yeah, you just need to put more into it, like feelings and stuff like that. Like
okay.
you can't just take your blog and make it a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you got to kind of weave it all together." And
Yeah.
so, what was happening in your life during those times? How did it all start? Like, what were you feeling? In the beginning of the book,
Mm,
I talk about, and it was really hard for me to talk about this because
Mm.
it was very it was very transparent and I talked about my upbringing and my parents and how like they were very controlling and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I start out by talking about that, and then I kind of get into this, like how I started my business. I was in the public relations business, and I
Okay.
had that for many, many years. And I talk about like how the progression of, going and getting to this point where I was, became an endurance athlete. Um, and so anyway, but there are points in the book where I really, like what we were talking about before with Strava and not feeling good about yourself. I really
Mm.
talk about that, like how I really didn't feel good about myself. And it took so long
Yeah.
for me to get to that point where I was like, you know what? I'm good. Things are good. And, I got this. Um, so yeah, so it was like that. And then there is a part in the book, I'll tell you, this was crazy, right? So during one of my seasons, it was back in 2018.
Mm.
I had signed up for all these events and I was, gearing up and I really felt good and I was feeling strong, finally feeling strong without getting injured because keep
Mm.
getting injured all the time. Just, par for the course. So anyway, so I write about this in my book, how, I was talking to my sister and she was having all these headaches and she, um, you know, it was so bad and she was going to all these doctors and they were like, oh, it's just a migraine, no big deal. They kept
Mm.
giving her medication, all this, her blood pressure was elevated. And then a week later, she crashed in her apartment. She just collapsed and she was found foaming at the mouth.
Oh
She
God.
had an aneurysm.
Right.
Um, and she was in a coma for 3 weeks before she passed.
Wow.
And it was this particular chapter, for some reason, oh my God, I had to read this over and over and over again. I was doing I have an audio book.
Okay.
And for some reason, the chapter, like the audio book kept messing up in some way. And I
Oh,
had to reread this. I mean, I must have reread this chapter about, at least a dozen times.
yeah.
And every time I read it, I was crying,
Yeah.
hysterical. It
Wow.
was, yeah.
That's almost like you were being forced to process that grief. That's
Ter-
crazy, isn't
it
it?
was crazy. It was really crazy.
Wow.
And yeah, she was my best friend, so it
Yeah.
was
I'm
really
so
rough.
sorry. Yeah, that's really and a shock as well.
Yeah.
Not what you were expecting at all.
And you hear about these things, you read about these
Yeah.
things and you say, "Oh, that's
Yeah, you don't think
never
it's
going to
gonna
happen to
happen
me."
to me. No, I know. Yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry to
yeah,
hear about your sister. And
thank you.
that wasn't that long ago either, really, was it? So it happened in
No,
2018.
it's
So it's only
2018, almost 8 years.
seven. Yeah. I mean, it isn't, it sounds like a lot, but it isn't really, when
No,
you've been with someone that long in your life
yeah.
and you don't have them. So that must have been really tough to write about and
Oh,
fun.
very tough. It was
Yeah.
just I was hysterical and then, we did there were so many things that were so similar and so parallel in our lives that I decided to get an MRI of my brain, and it turned out I had a brain aneurysm.
Oh
So
my
I had to go
God.
for surgery a couple of years ago to get a stent put in the back of my head, which
Right.
was like crazy, because
Yeah.
you're so like you get into triathlon, you get into endurance sports, and that becomes the biggest thing in your life, and then these things happen, and it's a
Mm,
stop, it's a pause, and you know it, but thankfully, thank God, I'm okay,
yeah.
and I
That's good to
caught it,
hear.
and I caught it,
Yeah.
and I attributed it to my sister because she
Yeah.
saved my life. Because if that didn't happen to her, I would never have known. I didn't even know
No.
about aneurysms.
No, no. Well, you wouldn't. It's not something people think about very often unless it
No, not at
comes,
all.
yeah, and hits you in the face, really. Yeah, so okay.
Sorry about that,
No,
putting that
where
into
do we
like a
go? No,
downer.
it's just no, it's not. It's like, this is life, isn't it? We
Yeah.
have to deal with these things. Was she into any kind of sports or no,
Not
she
at all.
didn't?
She thought I was absolutely crazy. She just she was like, "Why are you doing these things?" I would, one time I was in my son went to UC Berkeley in California, and I was out there and I was doing a run, and there's this beautiful run right along the marina by the Pacific Ocean. It's just magnificent. You see
Mm,
the Golden Gate Bridge, you see all the bridges. It's beautiful.
yeah.
And I'm running and I'm feeling so happy, and all of a sudden I trip, and my knee is like so bloody, like I'm like a bloody mess, and call her up and she's like, "Why are you doing this? You really need to stop." But no, but
Oh, it's
otherwise, yeah.
funny what people think as well, isn't it? Because you're like, I'm feeling really good.
Ah,
And even if I've got blood all over me, I
ah.
don't care. I feel
You
great.
just keep and you want to just keep
Yeah.
going forward even though you're bleeding.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you feel more hardcore as well. It's like, yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were racing and training during the time when your sister died as well. I mean, how did that affect you? Like
Oh,
with
it was
training?
yeah, I just, my thought was nothing really matters, like I
Yeah.
really started to think like why am I so like I used to get so nervous at these races, like
Mm,
before a race I would just have such terrible race anxiety, like
mm,
I mean, yes, I'm not coming in first place, but I didn't want to come in last place. God forbid I should come in last place. Like, and then there was one race where I actually did come in last place, and I thought to myself, you know what? It's okay. It's
mm,
okay. It's really okay. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to remember that you came in first place or last place, I mean, it does, but nobody else does. And
mm.
so at that time, I was really having like these thoughts of, okay, should I continue to do this? Shouldn't I continue? And then, the realization came where I thought, you know what? I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
It's healthy. It helps, you know, even mentally more, I think so, sometimes more mentally than anything else because
Yeah.
you could just get it out. Like I had so many issues with my mom, growing up, but she felt really bad about herself,
Mm.
she had a I mean, she was a polio survivor. She was in an iron lung when she was a baby, when she was
Oh, yeah.
little. And so, and then she had us very, very young. She was 18 when she had us, and she was always very sick. And, so the feelings that she had for herself, she kind of, kind of deflected, I guess, on us. And, um, made us all feel like a little bit inferior. So, there was a lot of issues there. And
Mm.
I mean, I went through therapy and all that kind of stuff, but I write about this in the book too, a little bit, a
Yeah.
lot actually, because some people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you shared this. But anyway, so I shared it because I know I'm not alone. I know that there
Yeah.
are other people that have dealt with similar issues. So I felt it was important to put in there.
Mm,
And so during one of my runs, I had a long run. I was training for the New York City Marathon, and I started coming to terms with my mother during that
mm,
run. And
okay.
I was crying, like at the end of this run, I'm hysterical crying, and
Mm, yeah.
but you end up coming to terms, with things that happened, and you start accepting it instead of saying, "Oh, this was terrible. I can't believe this happened to me." Oh
Mm,
no, you know what? Everybody goes through stuff in their lives, and everybody has issues with their childhood, and it's time to accept and move on.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important and interesting point, and I think, it's something that I definitely resonate with a lot because I had, my dad was quite distant when I was growing up and I was always looking for approval. And, I was like, there was one point in my Ironman training, I was like, I wanted him to come and watch me race. And he, yeah, he was like, yeah, I'll come and watch you. It's like my first Ironman. And then, like, a few weeks later, he was like, oh, sorry, we're going on holiday. And I was like, okay, I'm never going to get what I think I need from him. So I just need to like let that go. And it is like I think sport and doing these endurance events is massive. You can work through so much stuff in there. Almost like you say, maybe better than therapy in some ways, because you do it yourself. If you really listen to what thoughts are coming up, and I always recommend people do this for themselves if they can, is like write down, okay, what am I thinking about myself when I do this session? And like stuff like, oh, I'm old and rubbish and whatever. You write it down and then you go, where's this coming from? Why am
Yeah.
I feeling like this? It can be an amazing therapy session, like you're training for endurance events, and you can let a lot of stuff go and just grow so much through the sport, which is, I guess, is why you're so passionate about helping other people get into it so that they can process and learn and grow and become ultimately like better humans and more happy humans, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. Because I mean, everyone goes through so much stuff in their lives. Nobody walks away from life unscathed in any type of way,
no.
And
Although we think everyone's
yeah,
fine. Yeah.
you think everybody's like, oh, this
Yeah, yeah.
person just does amazing, but it all kind of comes back, or it comes around, and you know, yeah, I look at this one woman who I went to high school with, and she was in the show. She was always the lead, and she was,
Mm,
beautiful, and she started an opera company, and she was very successful, and now, I see her, and she's on Facebook, and her husband has Parkinson's, and she
mm,
just looks hor I mean, she just
mm,
doesn't look good, and it's just sad to me because you know, she
mm.
was like, everybody looked at her and said, "Oh, this
Like a
is the
role
person I
model.
want to be." And, and
Yeah.
then her life turned around, which is sad. And,
Mm. Yeah, and I
you
guess we
know,
have to go through these things, don't we, to change and develop,
yeah,
and it's not necessarily at the time it's not good and it's hard, and yeah.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
usually come out of it like going, oh wow, that experience like changed me for the better, and I wouldn't, like you say, you wouldn't be where you are now if you hadn't had those experiences, and maybe, you wouldn't have gained so much if it had just been easy for you to go into endurance sports. It might not have been the same kind of thing. So yeah. Okay. So you said you had like surgery on to was that 2 years ago for the brain
Oh,
and
for
you
the brain aneurysm, yeah, it
yeah.
was about 2 years ago. Yeah, it was definitely, yeah, it was 2 years ago. And then I also, while training for half Ironman, I tore my meniscus for the
Oh,
third time.
oh no.
Yeah, it was like after a 60-mile bike ride, I go out for a run, and
Mm,
I think I was like a half a mile into the run, and I could hear it,
oof.
I heard it snap. So anyway, so I had meniscus surgery, and that was, whatever. It was what it was. And
Mm,
then I was told this past year that I needed a knee replacement, a partial knee replacement. So I had heard that there was a new thing called the Misha knee system. It's like a
okay.
hinge that gets attached to your knee. It's a little less invasive than a partial knee replacement. They don't put anything in, they just attach it to your tibia and your femur.
Okay.
Um, but so I have this surgery. It took me a long time to decide, okay, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this done because I love running. I don't want to give up running. This is something important to me.
Yeah.
So I get this done. And then I think it was my follow-up appointment. I think it was like, the 6-week mark or something. And the
Mm.
surgeon was like, "Oh, I just want to tell you that all of the units that were put in the last 100 people," and this is like a new thing, like a
Oh.
lot of people don't even know about this.
Yeah.
The last 100 that were put in, they're all defective. Yours
Oh
is
God.
defective. She said, "But don't worry, it could be okay."
Right. Okay.
And my husband's like, "Oh, they're putting the same unit in a 200-pound man, then they're putting in you and you're, 130." You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So,
Yeah,
maybe
the
it'll
load might be different. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
But I've been struggling ever since. Like
Okay.
I've been trying to get back to running, so that's been a real struggle for me.
Mm.
Just, I'm still in a lot of pain, and this is almost a year after the surgery.
Mm.
It's crazy. So, so again, like people continuously struggle, even though they look like, oh, they're doing so great and they're,
Mm.
doing all these events and they're,
Yeah, but
you just don't
you're
know.
in pain. Yeah, so knee surgery can be like
Whew.
really, I know that it can be just a bit of an emotional roller coaster, I think, from what I've seen with people. So how do you manage that at the moment with the trying to get back to running?
So I've been, at first I was trying to do it I was trying to get back to where I was. And then I
Mm,
realized, you know what? I can't do it that way. It's just not going to work out.
mm,
So what I've been doing is just taking like a mile at a time, just doing a mile, and maybe, a couple of days later or, a few days later, I'll do another mile, and I'm just
yeah.
trying to build it up like that, as opposed to, okay, you know what, I don't know that I'm going to get back to where I was,
Mm,
but
yeah, so that's
you
part
know,
of the process, because as we age as well, those things happen, don't they? We can't necessarily get back to where we were, especially if you've had an injury and you've had a setback like that, then it's that is really difficult to deal with. It's a real challenge for us to get our head around that, and that must be something that you're
yeah,
learning some new stuff with, I'm
my
guessing.
training buddy, he says to me, you got to put things into perspective. It's not that bad. Like you can always just do an aqua bike. They're not,
Mm,
and he's right. Like I
yeah.
don't need to dwell on this. Like I'm going to try to get back, and next year this year I'm feeling like, okay, let me just take it as it
Mm,
comes. I mean, for me, it's particularly difficult because I do write about sneakers. I do write about
right.
running. I do, that's one of the things that I write about, and I do a column on a newsletter as well for a magazine.
Mm,
And, not being able to run is puts a little damper on
yeah.
things, but but I'm trying. And that's
Yeah.
what I've been, saying also on social is, you know what? I'm trying to get back. if you're struggling, you're going to get back. We could do this together. Let's help each
Mm.
other get back, you know?
Yeah, and like you say, you have to be prepared to adapt if you can't, It sounds like you're really enjoying the distance swimming, so that's like something that you can do as well. I have like coached people before that have had like one sport and it was running, and it's like the whole identity gets wrapped up, and then it's very hard to let go if you have got no alternative, or there's no sort of flexibility about, but I could do that instead, or I could do this instead, there are other options. Then people get really low and find it really
Yes.
hard. So it's good that you do have, and a triathlon is one of those sports where you kind of, you've got that anyway. So you're like, oh, I can do all of these from the beginning. So you've always got options. And then you go,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to focus more on that or more on this. And there's so many things that you can do just within triathlon. And then if you start thinking outside of that box as well, then, you can, there's all sorts of things. But yeah, that's sounds challenging for you at the moment then with that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge, but I'm working through it.
Yeah, definitely. And so is there any tips that you'd give to people if that's something that they're dealing with?
Yeah,
Take.
I mean, I definitely I try to, tell people just to be kind to yourself, don't it's okay. It's okay, maybe you're not going to run that 8 or 9 minute mile again,
Mm,
And if you do, great. But you got to be gentle with yourself and you
mm,
have to give it time. And, I know that surgery, when you have surgery, you have major surgery like, a knee replacement or this Misha thing that I had. It's pretty major. I
mm,
mean, they like screw into your bones,
yeah.
and it's almost like it's almost like a broken bone.
Mm,
So you need to be gentle and you need to give it time, and it's okay to give it time, just be patient because you will get back.
mm,
Maybe you're not going to be, running marathons, but you'll hopefully be running 5Ks or 10Ks or half
yeah.
marathons, you know.
Yeah. And do you ever use any kind of gratitude practices or anything like that to help you?
Absolutely. I have a gratitude journal.
Mhm.
I've actually they're sitting right here in front of
Okay.
me.
Oh,
It's
nice.
funny, right? Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
One line gratitude, one
Oh,
line a
nice.
day.
Yeah.
And I have another one here that I write in, this one I take with me. And I write about, what I'm grateful for. And, that definitely helps. I mean, I'm grateful that I'm able to ride a bike or
Mm,
swim or, yeah,
mm.
okay. The running, it's hard, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, it's like you can do other stuff. I saw something the other day and it was like gratitude journaling is like gaslighting yourself or something. And I was like, well, I kind of see what you're saying, but really it's also very helpful, when you're in a, a kind of low space, then just finding anything that you can be positive about, it does change the way you think about things. And if you're focusing on like what is wrong and what everything that's going wrong and all the things that could be better, then it's going to make you more depressed. Whereas if you focus on the good, then that's where your mind goes and you sort of gravitate towards that more positive energy, which we need
Yeah,
a lot more of in our
we
lives.
absolutely do. We absolutely do.
Yeah, for sure. And so you started quite late. What kind of advice would you give to people who were thinking about trying to start getting active, but they're thinking, oh, I'm a bit old now, my knees hurt.
Yeah, I get that all the time from my friends. They're like, "Oh, I'm too old to start." And it's
Mm,
so not true. I mean, you could start at any age. I have a running group. I've got runners in their 70s and they're
mm,
just killing it. They're just killing it. And they weren't runners their whole lives.
yeah.
They got to it a little bit later in life, and they're enjoying the community and, and being part of it. Um, you know, I'm 63 and I hope that I can keep going. There
Mm,
was a woman at a recent triathlon that I did. She was 85 years old.
wow.
She was the only one in her age group, and obviously she won,
Yeah.
and she had such attitude, and I loved it. I
Yeah.
just loved it. Like she kicked my butt on the bike. I like I can't keep up with this woman.
Wow. That's amazing. I think there's a lot more inspirational older people now than there used to be. We do see that on social media, whereas in the past maybe you didn't. So where do you think that people get this idea that they're too old? Where does it come from, do you think? Is it
I think it's,
family or
I think so. I think it's all like, this negative thought in your head, like what you were saying, like why, it's this negative thought in your head, like, oh, I could never do that. I could, I'm too heavy. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. And, in reality, and that's really why I wrote the book From Couch Potato to Endurance Athlete, because I
mm,
wanted to reach out to those people that were, sitting on the couch watching TV, drinking a beer, feeling
mm,
like, this is what their life is now, and it doesn't have to be that way.
no,
You don't have to be like that. You could make that change. And that's my whole thing. Like I really want people to feel like they can change because they can,
yeah,
and I think that by reading my story, it does inspire people to try to, say, look, if she could do this, I could do this. Like, I mean,
yeah.
really,
It's amazing, and
yeah.
it's inspirational, and we need a lot of that to be seen. But I suppose not everybody is in those circles where they see that inspiration, and yeah, I guess it's like reaching those people. I don't know how you do it because they're locked into that space. I think I'm kind of the opposite in that I'm like I'm not that old, so I'm like getting older, and then I'm like, oh, hang on, yeah, you are a bit, and you just don't feel like it, and you're like, why am I with all these old people? And then you, oh yeah, I'm that age. Like mentally, I don't feel like you
You
sort of
don't. You always are
no,
20, you're always 20
yeah,
years old in
yeah.
your head.
Yeah, I know. And why doesn't my back hurt? Why is that twinging? It's not, that shouldn't be happening. I'm in denial. But that's, it's great. I think staying active as long as you possibly can is so important. It's just like a really key thing for me, definitely. And I love being physical. But I always have done. So, I feel like it's easy for me to say that because I've always used it as a mental health, or if it was if I wasn't competing for something, I was just using it as like a space to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's really important to say too, and to acknowledge, because people think that, be, maybe they didn't grow up in sport. Look, I
Mm.
didn't.
Mm.
I never participated in gym. I used to like sneak out the back so that I can cut out. Like I
Yeah.
never participated in gym. I never like they used to bring us to the pool when I was a little girl, and I would just splash around. I had no interest in doing anything athletic.
Mm.
So, but then, when my kids were born, I really kind of pushed them into doing
Right. Yeah.
athletes, athletics in school, because I realized how important it really is.
Mm.
My parents, they didn't see any importance there.
Yeah.
Um, but, now as I'm older, I realize that this is something that you have to do. Like you don't even
Mm.
have a choice. Like you have to be active in some, you don't have
You
to
don't have to go
swim.
and do a
Yeah, you don't
massive
have to
thing,
swim, 8 miles in Michigan,
No. Just
but
anything, isn't it? It's like,
just
and you just got to
walking.
start somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like to just get started. because there's danger is you go, but I couldn't possibly do all of that. And it's like, well, you don't start going
No,
and doing like a sprint triathlon. You built up from walking on a treadmill, and then meeting someone and starting to do little runs, and then that gradually sort of seeps its way into your life, and it's a
exactly.
really positive. Think I think when people start going down that route and they see the benefits, they don't tend to like go back really, or they want to try even if they've got barriers. They kind of want, there's that desire because you see how it helps. And trying to stay consistent with people, I think sometimes can
Well,
be really
I think
hard.
that's the hardest thing is getting started and then getting consistent. And
Mm,
the thing that I've been, kind of stressing a lot to a lot of people, is that, set yourself up the night before, get yourself all
mm,
set, and then, you know, you have to go for a run, you have to go for a swim, you have to go for a bike ride. You're all set up. All you have to do is throw on your clothes,
yeah,
take your supplements or whatever you're taking in the morning, have your coffee and get out the door. Like I just like, okay, time to go.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
You don't even have time to think about it. Like, I don't want to do it. It's like you're going. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I'm up every day at 4 o'clock. So
Wow.
yeah, so I'm, and usually out the door by, you know, quarter to 5, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but people don't have to do that.
No, you could do
You
any
can-
time,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me, it just for
If
me,
it works for you, that's
it
good.
works.
Yeah.
It works. It works.
I was
Cause
just talking to someone about
yeah,
whether people are morning and evening people as well, because not everyone's a morning. I'm more of a morning person, but not
yeah.
everybody is. So awesome. So you mentioned your books coming up. You've got the one for beginner triathletes coming out in January, and then there's another one in the pipeline for open water swimming. How about any races or goals? You've mentioned, was it the swim that you've got coming up, or
Yeah,
have you
so I
got?
have a swim. I have an 8.2 mile swim in Mackinac Island, which is an
Mm,
island. I never heard of it before.
no.
It's in Michigan. It's in the Great Lakes, and you swim around the island, which is
Okay.
very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. And then I have a couple more aqua bike races that I'm doing in the fall.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm excited. I have some really good events coming up, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. Well, thank you for all of your inspiring words. It's been really nice to chat with you and hear a little bit more about your story. And people can obviously go and read your book because I think it sounds amazing, like what you've been through and how you've managed things and all the stuff that you've learned along the way. I think will be very fascinating for people. So I will make sure that the links to all of that is in the show notes. And people can follow you on Instagram. Is it that you're mainly
Yeah,
on?
Instagram, I'm on everything, TikTok,
Okay.
YouTube, everywhere.
Oh yeah,
So
you were in
if
PR.
so so it's all Hilary Topper,
Yeah,
and I think X is Hilary 25 because that was when,
the other one was gone. Yeah.
when Twitter first came out way
Oh,
back when, I was like, oh, I'll do Hillary 25, but I should have been more consistent and kept it, but I didn't, but whatever.
people will find you. We'll make
Yeah,
sure
I'm
that people
sure.
find you. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Celia,
And
thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me
that's
on your
okay.
show.
Thanks for listening today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye for now.